Joined from the Department of Trade Consumer Protection, my friend Michael. Michael, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
Hi, Jeremy. Doing great. Thanks.
Thanks for being back. And today we're going to be tackling utility scams and finding you, the viewers out there, resources so you're ready for, what is going to be here, really cold weather coming up in Wisconsin. We deal with it each and every year. But unfortunately, we seem to deal with these utility scams. And, we wouldn't talk about these things, Michael, if they didn't continue to work, right? We wouldn't be here to share this information because we hear about them. It seems like they come in waves sometimes, but this is an easy one to prey on people that might be desperate or maybe not able to pay for their bills when it comes to wintertime. So set us up here. What's going on here?
Yeah, you bring up a great point on how we talk about this, quite a bit, and we try and bring awareness as much as we can. But if it didn't keep happening, we won't have to keep talking about it. And unfortunately, it does. And what happens in these is they're preying on the bills. They're preying on these necessary services, your heat, your water, your electricity. And these are things that people aren't necessarily emotionally attached to, but they need, for day-to-day survival. And so what happens is these scammers will call and they'll threaten to disconnect any of those utilities due to a late payment or some information that they needed or anything else that just requires them to pay immediately. And this preys on that emotional response of thinking about what will I do if I don't have these things. Not everyone is, paying super close attention to exactly what payment was made when, and, did I miss it? And they second guess, did it not go through, or did it not go through in the mail or electronically? And so it's easy to prey upon that. And then they compound it by maybe manipulating the phone number or having some information that seems illegitimate, like a truck number or billing statement or specific details about their address, where the house color or where they're located, and things that make it seem legitimate and easy to fall for.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've received this as a phone call in the past, and it's interesting because it's so random, and I know I shouldn't be answering these. You should hang up right away. But if you do happen to listen in on this, it's pretty convincing story about what it is. But if you do keep track of your finance, or you're kind of keeping track of what's going on, there are things that stand out that should give you some red flags. Doesn't always happen because, again, the story changes each and every year. But what are some ways that we could basically stop, think about what's going on here to avoid being scammed? You got some great tips.
Sure. So the first is that utility companies, they're going to contact you by mail with an overdue statement. They're not going to call you and demand an immediate payment. They may call you with an automated call typically and let you know if your account is overdue and that you need to go online and pay it. But they're not going to call you and demand that you pay. And they're certainly not going to demand that you make that payment with a gift card or a wire transfer or some other obscure type of payment. Those should be giant red flags that jump out saying, hey, this isn't legitimate. I need to double check on what's happening here. And, as I mentioned earlier, we talk about, we don't know when we sent our money in, and we don't maybe know if we happen to miss a bill that month. If you're unsure of the account, just hang up or don't fall for the letter and just call your utility provider from a statement or legitimate website or resource and just ask them to confirm what the status of their account is. And maybe even explain you got a phone call that says it was late and might be disconnected, and they'll talk you through it. I mean, every utility company is aware that this scam is out there. And so they're going to be, super keen to help.
Yeah, and a good one to note here, and we've kind of touched on a little bit here, but utility companies are actually prohibited from disconnecting heat provided services during November 1st through April 15th. So, even if you're on the hook here, there are some things out there to protect you from exactly this.
That's exactly it. Here in Wisconsin, they're prohibited from disconnecting your service from November 1 through April 15th. The one caveat to that is the resident must have been connected to the heat providing utility before November 1st. Otherwise, if you connect in that period of time, it doesn't apply.
Yeah, so definitely make sure you check everything and be ready for it. But and I think that's a big part of this too, is to be ready that it is this time of year, and maybe that's the approach we got to take, Michael, is when it comes to different seasons, different thing, no matter what it is, we got to be ready in some capacity to understand that these are going to come through, but we can do things and use tools that are at our discretion to be ready and to stay protected.
Absolutely. Having this awareness, just that alone can work wonders. It's similarly, I got the same phone call. You mentioned you got a phone call. I got one recently too, saying, my house is have the utilities disconnected. And I'm like, well, this is strange. But, I would have immediately gone through these things had I not tried to pay attention, took them to heart and said, all right, this is happening every single day to hundreds of people. There's no reason I couldn't be one of them.
Yeah. And finally, that's mentioned here too, that there is funds available for households depending on the size and different eligibility requirements. Maybe if you could share some of that information with us. So if there are people that are affected by energy bills, costs, that sort of thing, there are resources out there too to help them. Don't need to take the scams advice here. You can actually get some help.
Absolutely. Governor Evers, he recently announced that there'd be an additional just over $16 million that was available through the Wisconsin Home Energy Assistance Program and the Keep Wisconsin Warm Cool Fund. And you mentioned, eligibility is based on income, size, energy costs. But I encourage anyone who is needing assistance and is interested in the program to go to EnergyBenefit.wi.gov to see if you qualify and how they can help.
And finally, Michael, in any scam or anything that's happening out there, you guys do take reports on this. You do want people to report these things. Have people been reporting specifically when it comes to utility scams? Are you guys getting a lot of reports of this? Are people actually following through on at least kind of reporting this because that's going to help? And maybe too, if you could share a little bit on the process when somebody does share a tip or let you know that this is happening, what can you do with those?
Yeah, it's very helpful. And we encourage everyone, even if you didn't fall for it, to give us a call, let us know what phone number it came from. Because that in itself, if we see a pattern coming from the same number, it's possible we could start backtracking, looking into where that number came from and who was behind it. And, sometimes it's overseas, sometimes it's domestically. And we might be able to dig in and stop somebody else from being victimized. We also give us a call. It's easy to our hotline number. You can just leave a message and just say, hey, I was called with this number, and we'll take that and we'll aggregate it. And we'll start looking at what are the most common scams. Maybe, there's a new one out there we're not aware of. And if we know about them, it gives us the opportunity to do things we're doing right now and help share that awareness. So as you mentioned, we really encourage everyone to call our hotline at 1-800-422-7128. Go ahead and either speak with somebody live to talk through what happened, or you can leave a message, or if you just want to shoot us an email at DATCP.wi.gov, just shoot that over to us and we'll use the info.
Great advice here, great information. And again, we want people to stay warm, cool, whatever time of year it is. And don't be afraid if you get this call. Definitely stop, think, and react appropriately and report it, please, because we want to stop these fraudsters from continuing to do that. Michael, great information. Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you real soon.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Take care.
You bet.